Ladies and gentlemen, I'm meadsy69. Welcome back to the channel. Now, a blast from the past. Yes, this feels such a long time ago where these kind of tanks were actually a thing in World of Tanks Blitz. Yes, believe it or not, there are some tanks out there that you very, very rarely see now. But back in the day, they were absolutely amazing. And one of those tanks, just one of those tanks, there was a few, but one of those tanks is this tank right here, the T-34-85 Rudy. 100% a blast from the past. I used to absolutely love this tank. In fact, this was one of my first, it wasn't my first, but it was one of my first premium tanks in the game. Obviously, there was a couple of Tech Tree premium tanks, you know, like the IS-6, the Jagdtiger 8.8, the Lerva. There were some of them that you could get at any time. But my first proper premium tank that was in the store was this tank right here, the Rudy. And what a tank this was. Of course, it is basically a T-34-85. Nowadays, this tank is quite poor, and that is due to power creep. There's just been much better tanks that has been added into the game. So this tank has been left far behind. However, you can still play the tank like you can any other tank in the game, and you can still perform really well. So we're going to have a look at the stats, and we're going to have a look at just some really good games. Actually, one of them is of course from myself. So the DPM, not too bad for what it is, a tier 7 medium at 2,469. This is also running with calibrated shells, so you can actually get the DPM up a little bit, but not too much, to be fair, because the reload is so small anyway, it won't really matter. It won't really change too much. So you've got a 4.8 second reload. Again, you can get that just for around 4.2 or 4.3, something like that. Nothing, not that much different. So the penetration is 151 on your AP, 204 on your APCR. Now, again, I am running this with calibrated shells. It has APCR, so you're not going to gain too much running it with calibrated shells, but the penetration really you do struggle with. So even just the tiniest bit of extra penetration on this tank does help. So I would recommend running this tank with calibrated shells. Your HE is 48. You've got a 200 alpha gun, so yeah, it is a low hit point or low shot gun, but the reload is very small, so yeah, bear that in mind. APCR is 170. HE is 300, so of course if you can get that HE out, there's not going to be too many tanks that will let you get that out, that HE out, but there's still going to be some. Borziks, etc. So your aim time 3.7, so I don't think that's too good, to be honest. I think that is now, I do think that needs to come down a bit, and the same as the gun dispersion, 0.330. So both of them are not fantastic by all means, and it has 8 degrees of gun depression with a top speed of 54 kilometers per hour. But yeah, I can't believe, like, watching this tank now or playing this tank now, yeah, it feels okay. I mean, any tank can feel okay when it goes your way. But looking at this tank now, you just sit there and think, how did this be so good? Because it did. It used to be really good because there was nothing really like it. Of course, we had the T-36, the T-34-85 in tier 6, and of course you had the T-43 in tier 7. This is pretty much like a T-43 in a way. So yeah, we had tanks like it, but premium tanks, we've never had anything really like this apart from the T-34-85 Victory, which is a tier 6. Nowadays, no one looks at these tanks. You know, no one ever looks at playing these tanks because they just don't compete. They really just don't compete with the newer tanks on the block, the newer mediums, you know, the heavies, the smashers, and so on and so on. So they're just not a thing anymore. They're really not. But I took it out for a few games, and this was one of them. And to be honest, I actually enjoyed playing it. Of course, I got wrecked a few times, as you would in a tank like this. But overall, it did make me look back and think, you know what? what a time for Blitz this was. When this tank come out, what a time, you know, the YouTubers that are around, and it does make you look at these kind of things. Like when I was playing this tank, there was Bushka. He was at his prime, you know, he was absolutely amazing, and it was one of those that you couldn't wait for a video of Bushka's to drop, and it gets to the point that you knew when he would drop a video, so you were waiting around that time he would drop a video. The same as Skate Extreme, a good friend of mine. I still talk to him here and there. I've got his phone number. I do text him every now and again. He's doing all right. But yeah, you just look and think, God, I miss these days. I wish we could just turn back the time and in Blitz, not just turn back time in general, but turn back time in Blitz, get the old gang together, you know, the Martin Doggers, the Snake Eyes of Bushka's friends, Bushka, you know, all these people, Skate Extreme, the old clans, you know, the clan rivalries, Phoenix versus Legion, Pramo, you know, all these old clans. It does make you a bit nostalgic. So, but would I buy this tank right now if it come for sale? To be fair, probably not. Probably not. If Wargaming sold this tank as it is now in the shop, people would not be impressed. Honestly, they wouldn't be impressed. But years ago, it was like, wow, do you know what? This is a really good tank. And it was a really good tank. But yeah, happy days in Blitz. They were the good days. And most of you that are watching this, that will be watching this now, probably don't even remember the old days. You probably wasn't around sort of 6-7 years ago where we was, and we remember, and it'd be good if Blitz could go back to them times. Not so much the game style itself, the game more so. Obviously there's a lot of premium tanks now, which is rightly so. Wargaming needs to make money. They are a business after all. They've got every right to try and make money after all. If they didn't make money, we would not be playing this game. There would be no game to play. So I totally understand. There's some things that we agree with. There's some things that we don't agree with. That is just like any other business. But I would just like to bring back the old crew, you know, the old people, the tuning, the streams, everything like that. It would just be amazing if we could go back in time and just get their old gang together. The old tanks, you know, and that's the thing now, because these tanks, like the T-34-85 Rudy, yes, they are in the game. They're still in the game. They very rarely come for sale, but why can't Wargaming do something about that, you know? There is a thing called balancing. Yes, believe it or not, there is a thing called tank balancing. Why can't they buff these kind of tanks? You know, they're buffing everything else. So why can't Wargaming buff these kind of tanks that used to be really good, but they're just falling behind. No one wants to play them because they're not fun to play. They just get wrecked by pretty much everything that comes in front of it. So why can't, you know, take the T-34-85 Rudy, for example, buff it, you know, make it good, and then sell it, because that is what they usually do with their marketing. It is a good marketing, to be fair. Like, take a Rudy, buff it, make it strong, not OP. We don't want any OP tanks around here, but buff it, make it strong, then sell it, and they will sell. Because right now, if Wargaming sold this, of course there are a few people that would buy it because they probably might not have the tank, but they would sell a lot more if they made it a decent tank and then they sold it afterwards. Because not just to make money, I'm not just sort of sitting there, yeah, Wargaming, do this, it'll make you loads of money, but it needs a buff. It definitely needs a buff. Whether, I don't know how, maybe a bit more DPM, a bit more alpha, make the alpha a little bit more, the accuracy, obviously, the gun depression maybe. You know, there's ways to make this tank better. And I think Wargaming should look at these kind of tanks and think, you know what, this is a legend of a tank. It is. It goes back to the old time in Blitz, and why not show these tanks a little bit of love, you know? And I do honestly think that Wargaming need to do stuff like this. Stop looking so far into the future, like this new tank or that new tank, and how we can balance this tank or that tank. Just take some old tanks, you know, just for the old players, and buff the freaking tank to make it stronger and make people want to play these tanks again, because, you know, it just, otherwise they become obsolete. They just sit there and they'll never ever be played again. There's no reason to sell them because nobody would buy them. So I would love for Wargaming to buff these kind of tanks somehow. You know, I don't want Wargaming to buff it so it becomes extremely OP. Actually, I do. I'm joking. But yeah, just buff it in a way that it does become strong, it does become sort of competitive, and it can hold its own, especially when you are in tier 8. But I don't think they're going to do that. I just don't think Wargaming shows these kind of old tanks the love that they should get. So that is my opinion anyway. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Would you like to see these old-time tanks be buffed? You know, the Cromwell B over there, tier 6, been around a very, very long time. Yes, it's a strong tank, but nowadays there are better tanks. Maybe buff that a little bit, you know, make it more interesting. They do sell it regularly, so why not just buff it a little bit? But no, Wargaming won't buff a tank like this, but yet they'll bring a tank like that tank right there, the Annihilator, and things like the Smasher. Yeah, makes sense, doesn't it? So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Would you like to see old-time tanks like this be buffed or not? Let me know your thoughts. But so far, our guy here, 3 kills, 3,500 damage. Again, in a tank like this, he has already done a very, very good job. It's now a 3 versus 1. However, the AT-15A, don't take that for granted. It has very, very high DPM. It's got good armor, one of the best armors in the AT line. Yes, it's a premium tank, but if you look at the AT line in general, that tank right there probably has the better armor, even better than the AT-15, which is a tier 8 tank, and it has that fantastic DPM. So our guy's done a remarkable job. 3,900 damage, just about a one shot. It is a 1 versus 1, but the AT-15A cannot do anything about it. So well played, just over 4,100 damage. And to get that damage in a tank like this that is not used to performing like that nowadays is a very, very good job. So again, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Is this a tank that you would like to see buff, or what old tanks would you like to see buffed? Hope you enjoyed it. I'm Meadsy. Get subscribing, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.